Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we have got an exciting topic to discuss, that is data extension in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. If you are looking into mastering the in and outs of data extension, you are in the right place. Data extensions are the critical component for storing and managing your data in Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and understanding them is the key to maximizing your marketing efforts. So let's not waste any more time and jump right into it. Let me directly now jump into my Marketing Cloud instance and let's get started with data extensions. Once you log into your Marketing Cloud instance, you can navigate to Email Studio and you can navigate to subscribers and go to data extensions. Under this data extension, I have created a folder called customer profile. If you want to create a subfolder under this folder, right click on the folder and click on new folder. From Email Studio, it allows you to add alphanumeric characters. So here what I'll do is create a folder 1.1 and say customer details and click on enter. So 1.1 customer details folder has been created. Now let me create a data extension. So to create a data extension, you need to click on create. Once you click on create, you get these three different options of creating a data extension. Either you can create a standard data extension or a filter data extension or a random data extension. So first let me create a standard data extension. This is a data extension property tab. You need to define the properties of a data extension. The first property in a data extension is the creation method. Either you want to create a standard new data extension from scratch, or if you have any existing data extension, you can select existing data extension, or you can create a data extension from different kinds of template, like the send log or a post log or a send log, so on and so forth. First, let me create a standard data extension from scratch, and let me give a proper name for the data extension. I will call this as customer profile. From the Email Studio, when you're creating a data extension, you have an option to keep the name and the external key the same. So I'm adding the external key, which is same as my data extension name. You can give a description. When I click on next, I am navigated to the retention policy properties tab. By default, it is switched off and I can switch it on. Once I switch it on, I have an option to define the retention policy. Either I want to delete individual records after certain times lapse, say 6 days or 6 weeks. I have an option to select all records and data extension. It means once this data extension is created, after 6 weeks, all the records inside this data extension and the data extension itself will be deleted from Marketing Cloud. Or if I wish to delete all the records from the date that this data extension is created, all the records that is added to this data extension after 6 weeks will be deleted. So for now, let me just say individual records and click on next. Now I can define data extension attributes. So attributes are columns that define the data type for the data that you're storing, which can be as text, number, dates, etc. etc. It's crucial to define these attributes accurately to ensure your data is well organized and is meaningful. And don't forget, you can set default values, whether an attribute is required, and specify other properties to customize how your data needs to be handled. So let me create some attributes for this data extension. My first attribute is subscriber key. The data type for this attribute, I'm selecting it to be a varchar, that is text, and the length I'm assigning as 254. If you're using Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, or any other Salesforce CRM products, and if you want to leverage contact ID, lead ID, account ID, or any Salesforce IDs, the maximum character for that particular IDs would be 18. And the length of the primary key basically plays a very vital role in indexing as well as with respect to your query optimization. So you have to be very mindful of defining the length of those attributes. Here, for example, I have selected 254. Like the maximum character for your email address would be 254. If you mark this as more than 254, and if you want to define this data extension in your attribute group, then it will have an issue when you want to have a relationship with the contact key. I want to restrict my discussion to the basics of data extension. In my another video, when I'll discuss data extensions on advanced concepts, I will discuss all these other properties and other intricacies with respect to data extension. So for this example, I'm just restricting myself and defining this attribute as 254, and I'm marking this attribute as primary key. Let me add few more attributes, say email, because I want to send email communication, and my data type would be email address. By default, it will be 254 in length. Fine. So for personalization, let me add first name. Let me keep this as 50. Since the first name is not required, I can mark it as nullable. If you just uncheck this, then it will become not nullable and it will become a required field. And whenever you have to add those records, you have to make sure it should have some values. So for this example, I'm marking this as nullable. The other attribute I'm going to add is email consent, and I'm going to mark this as a Boolean attribute. This particular attribute will define whether the customer has given me a consent to send him a communication or not, which is a required field. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to define a default value as false. So whenever you create a record, if you do not have the value for email consent, it will be marked as false. Now let me add few more attributes. Phone. if I have to send a email SMS communication. But as for this particular use case, let me mark this as nullable. So it's just for email communication and this is not required. Let me add one more, local, and let me select this local as a data type and mark this also as nullable. Fine. And let's click on create. Now I have created a data extension which has 6 different attributes. Lanes are defined, primary key is defined, email address is defined, default value is defined. If you want to edit fields, you can, let's say I want to change the name of this particular field. So from capital K, I'm making it as small k and click on save. So the attribute name changed. Again, what I can do, instead of email opt-in, email consent, let me say is opt-in. I'm changing the attribute from email consent to opt-in and click on save. So this way you can also edit the attributes, but you can't edit the data types once it is created. You can add additional attributes, say for example, gender, and keep it text. Click on save. Now, if you want to use this data extension as a sendable data extension, click on edit and click on use for sending. And once you select this sending, you can see the subscriber key gets automatically populated and it gets related to the subscriber key. You can also use this for testing purposes. So if you click on use for testing, you can use this data extension for performing your test sends. So I'm selecting both for sending, marking as sendable, and also testable. So let me save this data extension. Once I save this data extension, you will see subscriber relationship. Once you define the subscriber relationship, and if you try to edit this field and try to save, it will give you an error saying that a field used in the subscriber relationship cannot be deleted. So you would not be allowed to delete the subscriber key attribute from this data extension anymore. Now, let's say if you want to duplicate this data extension, you can go at the top, click on copy, customer tracking, give the external key and click on copy. So you copied the data extension with the similar structure that you had previously. Let me navigate to audience builder, contact builder. So here it will say when it was created, when it was modified, but it will not give you a detail who has basically created or modified this data extension. From Email Studio, you don't have other properties that you can define for this data extension. If you navigate to contact builder, you get control settings option as well. If you click on edit, you can check or uncheck these permission sets for this data extension. Here what I'm saying is I am not allowing this data extension to be deleted by others. Okay, I do not allow others to basically modify or update attributes or add additional attributes. So, and let me click on save. Now you'll see you don't have the option to add or modify attributes. If I go to another data extension, that is customer profile, you have this create attribute button. But if you go back and click on the tracking, you don't get that option. Now, if I have to modify, I let's say if I want to give an option where others can add additional attribute, I can just click on this checkbox and click on save, and this particular button will be visible or enabled for you. But you don't have the delete option at the top. If you go back and click on profile, customer profile, you'll see you have a delete button enabled. So if you say allow users to delete the extension and save, this will be enabled. Fine. Moving on, what I would like to do is to create some dummy records. So let me create one record for you. I have created 3 test records for the customer profile data extension. Now let me navigate to the customer tracking, and if I want to import those 3 records into this data extension where the attributes are same, I'm going to click on import, click OK. From here, I'm going to select from existing data extension. I'm going to select the data extension, customer profile, and click on next, click next, and finish. All the 3 records from the another data extension has been added to this data extension as well. If you want to export these records, you just click on export, give a name, and click on browser download. If the file size is less than 25 MB, here it says 20 MB, but sometimes it allows 25 MB, or else you have to select FTP as a export process. But for now, I can select browser download and click on export, and that particular file has been downloaded. Fine. What I can do is, let's say, let me clear this record, and if I want to import via the CSV that I have downloaded, I can choose the file and click on next. Again, click on next and click on export. Done. And you can see I have imported those records into this data extension. So till now, I have shown you how to create a data extension, how to duplicate or copy a data extension, how to do import export of a data extension, right? Now let me go back to Image Studio. In my Image Studio, I have 2 standard data extensions, and each data extension has 3 records. Now we'll create a filter data extension. Select filter data extension, and you have to define the source for that particular filter. So let me select customer profile as the source, and let me define the filter criteria. So let's say email is not empty and opt-in is true. Okay, and save and build. When you say save and build, you can define a name saying customer opt-in. Let me give the same name as the external key and save it in the same folder, or create another folder. So you can create another folder as well from here. But for now, let me save it in the same folder, which is the customer details. Fine. So a data extension has been created. The processing is going on, and those records which are opted in could be added here. While this processing is going on, let me navigate to the source data extension, which was customer profile, and validate. So you can see all the fields were opt-in as false. So my record here will be 0. Fine. Now let me try to edit this record, mark it as true, true, and save this. So now I have edited and made two records where opt-in is true. And let me navigate back to my filter data extension. Right. So my filter condition is email is not empty and opt-in equals to true. Currently I have 0 records. Let me refresh this. Let this data extension get processed. So you see here, you have 2 records. You can come to the contact builder, come to this opt-in, and you can see 2 records. But here you can't see the filter that was applied to this data extension. For that, if you want to change the filter condition, you have to again go back to the email studio. On the properties, here you can edit the filter and add more attributes to it. You can define how these attributes are defined. Let's say opt-in is true and gender equals to male. And if I say this as and or, so you can define the grouping of the filter as well. And you can say save and refresh. Moving on, now I'll create a random data extension. So from Email Studio, I click on Create, select Random Data Extension. Again, I have to select the source. So the source here, I'm going to select Customer Profile. As a data source, by the way, you will not be allowed to select filtered data extension. Only the standard data extensions would be allowed to select as a source data extension for your filtered data extension and your random data extension. Source would be tracking. Fine. Let me add a reminder. Let me add a segment. So the segment will be 50%, which means 2 out of 3, and the remaining will be 1. And click on save. Click OK. Now we have these 2 data extensions, which are standard data extension. This as a filtered data extension, right? The type is filtered, and we have random data extension. Fine. So here the type you can see filtered, standard, and random data extension. Let's go back to our audience builder. In our contact builder, if you see, it does not define whether which one is a standard data extension or which one is your random or which one is your filter data extension. I want to move these 2 data extension to a Salesforce data extension. So I select Salesforce data extension and click on OK. So those 2 data extension now has been moved to Salesforce data extension folder. right? Now, if I use this data extension for sending communications, I can leverage this data extension to basically push this tracking information to Sales Cloud. Say I have individual email results I have configured for a contact object, and if I send communication via these data extensions, those individual email results would be populated using this data extension subscriber key. Though few things that you have to keep in mind while creating this data extension is the subscriber key has to match with the contact ID in Sales Cloud. If this subscriber key matches, and if you have a valid email address assigned to this particular data extensions, individual email results in the Sales Cloud would be repopulated. You don't have to do anything extra to basically push the tracking information from Marketing Cloud to Sales Cloud. So just to recap our today's discussion, we discussed how to create a data extension. We discussed different type of data extensions, how to create standard data extensions, how to create filter data extensions, how to create random data extensions, and how to create Salesforce data extension. We didn't discuss to create template data extensions. We'll discuss this in some other videos as we go along the path of this beginner series. If you like this video, give a thumbs up. If you have any questions, please add a comment. I will definitely reply to your comments and validate or clarify any questions or clarification you have. Thank you for listening to these discussions. See you in some another video. Bye.